Welcome once again to Journey to Peace with Gibson and Bridget. We're here to walk alongside you with life's journeys, the ups and downs, and we're praying that each of our steps just brings us closer and closer to peace. And today we've got a really great conversation. I'm actually excited about this. This is something that's really been on your heart because we've been talking about peace and our journey towards it. But there are really joy robbers and peace robbers in our life, aren't there?
Yeah, there's so many things that come to snuff out the light. We all are born with this light, right? And so many things just come and try to blow it out, snuff it out. And a couple of things that I've actually discovered is there's a lot of things that vie for our peace. The way I like to say it is this: all of us, we have been manufactured by the great and the grand manufacturer, God. Christ, right? And so, because the manufacturer, he has our best intentions in mind, he has our best interests in mind. So, he gives us a manual. Get it? Emmanuel, a manual. And the manual is the Bible, right? Which stands for the basic instructions before leaving earth, the Bible. And in the text, in the manual, it says that we need to be connected to our Creator. So, for us to run at our most efficient levels, at our optimal highest levels, we have to connect with Him. We have to be in step with Him. If we don't do that, the same thing happened that was in the garden. That break of fellowship leads to the break of peace.
Mm. And you say there's a lot of things that we put really in place of our creator, where the place he's supposed to be in our life, we put other things, sometimes unknowingly, sometimes knowingly, in his place. And that really can rob us of peace. I mean, I can think of so many things like, our career can be what we put in place. We're striving, we're waking up every day to find significance in our impact in the world or our career. And that can really rob us of peace because, how our work is received, our promotion or demotion, all of that is based on somebody else's evaluation and opinion of us. And whether, it's good one day or bad another day, that fluctuation can fluctuate our peace as well.
Exactly. I think the thing is with work is most of us will spend more than 60 to 70% of our working hours in our profession or in our jobs or in our work. So it's a big part of us maintaining that peace is the profession or the job that we choose to engage in. And what is that profession doing with respect to impacting everything around us? However, if your identity is in your job, it's going to at some point let you down. It's going to at some point rob you of that peace. So whether it's a job, it's not suffice. It's important, but it's not suffice so that we can have that peace. Whether it's um, a job, a career, even relationship. These are all great things, by the way. We are made for relationship. Relationships fulfill us. Relationships take us to another level, right? It gets us that euphoria, that high. However, even in a relationship, that's not supposed to take the place of God in our lives, in our hearts. And when we take God out of the main throne of our life, the main operating center of our life, and we put a person or we put a job. A lot of times people put material possessions. There's nothing wrong with having possessions, but are you possessed by your possessions? That's when the problem happens, right? So whether it's a person, whether it's a possession, whether it's a profession, oh, that'll preach. Uh, you know, all these things are good things. All these things are great things, but they're not, and they should not be in the place of the God, which is the God thing, which is the greatest thing, which is Christ.
Yeah, I think of Matthew 6:33, right? That says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." But when we put the good things in place of where God should be, so good things make it a God thing, that's when that disruption, that's when that breaking of peace can happen in our lives. And anytime that you remember where you got that wrong, you had to make an adjustment even in how you were viewing an opportunity or a thing or a place, and it was it had that wrong position in your life, and you had to readjust to regain your peace.
Yes, there was a time at the time I was running a non-for-profit organization, and we did outreach in various parts of the world: Asia, Africa, South America, Central America, different parts in the inner cities of the United States. And I remember we were slated to go during this season to China, and we had planned and prepared, and we had raised the fundings. And with this particular trip, it just did not go accordingly. The good news is it was a great news because as we learned, the group that we were going to go with, uh, it wouldn't have been a good situation for us. It wouldn't have been a good fit. So even when doors close, even when opportunities are not going forward, or not matriculating, those things could be a good thing. And I always like to say, man's rejection is God's protection.
Yeah, but before we jump to that,
Yes.
so how did you feel in the midst of the moment where what you had been planning and dreaming and getting other people on board for, and it was now evident it wasn't going to work out? What were your emotions or thoughts in those
It
moments?
was a letdown. It was a letdown because, again, if you think about the amount of time and effort and energy and resources that's poured into for an international trip, it's a lot that goes into it. It's not like something that takes a day or a month or 2 months and 3 months. This is something that the planning goes into even years in advance in order to get that stuff off the ground.
So then how did that realization, because you mentioned you realized it was actually for your good that that didn't happen. How did that realization kind of impact you?
Well, it impacted me in a sense that that in an international trip, there's a lot of planning that goes into it, and the negative emotions that hit me was, wow, I just went through this long period of time planning this trip to China, and obviously there was other entities and other people involved, and to cancel it. But again, like I was saying, that everything, even our setbacks, God uses that in our lives. God doesn't waste any of our pain. He doesn't waste any of those moments that steal our peace away. Because those moments that steal our peace remind us one thing: this is not heaven, and heaven is not this.
Hmm.
So it gives us something to look forward to. And yeah.
I think that's such a powerful statement that you said, that God doesn't waste anything in our lives. I remember there was a time we actually were in Detroit flying through, and we visited that Motown Museum,
Yes.
and we learned all about Berry Gordy and all, the Temptations and the Supremes, and just that wonderful time in music history. But
That
one
was a
of the
good trip.
things,
That was a very good
yeah,
trip.
and it was a really, I encourage you actually, if you ever get a chance, go to the Motown Museum in Detroit. It's so worth it, because you don't just see about the glory of the wonderful acts that came through there, and there's so much history there, and they try to keep it the way it was so you can kind of experience that. But I think about some of the disappointments early on in Berry Gordy's life that led him to starting Motown. I mean, there was so much that he had tried to do that wasn't working out, and jobs that he wanted, and then things weren't following through. And finally, he said, you know what, I just got to start this myself. And
Yeah.
had he not been through those disappointments, we may not have some of the best music,
Yeah.
in music
Yeah. My
history.
mom was with us on that trip, and she obviously loved it because that was the music of her era. But it was just a beautiful thing to look at and to see the humble beginnings. I mean, he had issues, getting loans and everything like that. But he just, like I said, bootstrapped it, and put all of his strength and courage into it. And I mean, the place there was not that big. And in the early days, he actually lived on the top level. I think it was the attic of the Motown studios. And so we can't despise humble beginnings. And we again, like we said, our setbacks are just a setup for the comeback, right?
Yeah, and it's really about your perspective. There's that famous story of the Chinese farmer whose son gets hurt, and the neighbors come by and say, "Oh, what bad misfortune! Your son is injured," and he says, "Good fortune, bad fortune, who knows?" And then the rulers of the land come by and they're looking for young men to go off to war, almost certain death, and his son was spared that because of his injury. And they say, "Oh, what good fortune, your son didn't have to go off to war." And he says, "Good fortune, bad fortune, who knows?" And the story goes on and on and on about the different ways or different things that happened, but yet it was his perspective that sometimes things happen to us and we don't really know the full impact of it until later on. It's like life, they say, is lived going forward, but really only understood looking back. Isn't that true?
That is so true. That is so true. And if you want to maintain your peace, try to be in the present, because what you realize is that the past gives you pain and the future gives you anxiety, but the presence gives you a present. The present gives you a present, and that present is peace. Live in the moment. So many times we are not in the moment. We are thinking about what's going to happen or what could happen, anxiety, what happened in the past. Oh, something happened in my childhood. But the thing is that we have to, I call it, stay in the cone of control. Now, what's the cone of control? You can't control the future. You can plan for it. You can anticipate. You can be as most prepared for the future. I'm not saying not to plan for the future, because I'm famously always quoted as saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So we believe in planning, but sometimes you make the best plans, but they don't go your way. So you have to be nimble even in your planning. The past, you can't do anything about the past. Don't let the past rob you of the present of the present,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, and another key thing you just said there about control, I think something that robs us of peace is that when we do try to control things we can't control, for example, other people's reactions or other people's thoughts or what other people are doing in their lives, that's just one example of something we really truly can't control. There's so much we can't control, but we are robbed of peace when we try to, when it's really impossible.
Exactly, exactly. So the things that you can control is your reactions to things. The things that you can control is your attitude towards things. The things that you can control is having gratitude within a certain perspective of things. Those are the things you can actually control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what are some other things that rob us of our peace that, because you talked about the fact that, putting things that are maybe even good things in place of where God should be, that's a huge robber of peace. But also trying to control things that we can't control. These are just a couple of the things, but there are many things that can rob us of peace.
Yes, and I think, having a mindset of movement, having a mindset of, like you were saying, moving your body, exercising, being healthy, those contribute to the peace of mind, because our creator, like we were saying in the beginning, the goal of our creator is for us to thrive, for us to be in a mindset and to be in a state of mind of thriving. Why is it good for us to thrive? So that we can be the best version of ourselves to serve our families, to serve society, to serve our communities, our churches, and to be there for the people that need us to be there for them. And so, if you're good and you're the best version of yourself, you're going to be able to strengthen everything around you. And
Mm.
that's the goal, right? The goal is to have that vitality, to have that zest of life. And when I notice, when I don't have peace, uh it's going to be very uh almost certain that those around me won't have peace. And that's what happens. You can only give what you have. So if you have an environment of turmoil around you, you're going to give that. It's like the old, comic strip of the guy. He has a bad attitude. The next thing you know, he yells at his wife, and then the wife yells at the son. Then the son, kicks the cat. Then the cat, goes and eats a lizard. So just that one little thing was a domino effect, and that's what we see present out in our world, right? There's a lot of turmoil going on, but don't let what's on the outside over here get on the inside in here.
Yeah, what if we reverse that, right? What if instead of that one act of chaos and that trickles down, what if our peace, our inner peace is actually trickled out and impacts those around us? That's part of the reason we wanted to start this podcast, Journey to Peace. It's all about us finding peace within ourselves and sharing that journey with you so that as you are walking through life's ups and downs, you too can find peace in the midst
and
of it all.
and that peace leads to that joy. And
Mm.
I had something that happened today which was really interesting. I was in a department store today, and this kind lady that works there was an elderly woman who was helping me find my stuff. And she just kept looking at me, and I'm like, why are you looking at me? She's like, well, you remind me of somebody that was in her past or whatever. And I was like, really? And then I just start singing. I said, I've got sunshine. And then she starts singing the whole song, and she's like kind of dancing, doing her thing. And then way over here, like way down the aisle, like on the end of the aisle, this mom who's there, like, soccer mom with her kid in the cart, and then she starts singing and picking up. And the next thing you know, I'm singing, this clerk is singing, this soccer mom is singing, and we've got sunshine on a cloudy day. And then so she helped me find the thing I was looking for. And she just looked at me and she said, son, you made my day. And I said, you made mine too. And then the soccer mom says, you made mine too. So, just like finding little elements of joy that raises the degree of peace in the consciousness of the world and also in the consciousness of others.
I love that ripple effect of impact there. I love
Yes.
that. Well, why don't you find someone that you can impact in a positive way today? Maybe that's our takeaway. That's what we need to do. One act of kindness, one act of love, one act of peace even can have a huge ripple effect. Well, thank you for joining us. Make sure you check our show notes below, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs peace today. Maybe that's your act of kindness. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to today's Journey to Peace with Gibson and Bridget. There's more to come, but in the meantime, let me recommend one of Gibson's books to you. It's called Staying Positive in a Negative World. Just because the world is full of negativity doesn't mean you need to be. There's a link to this book in the show notes. We'll see you next time.